So we'll start off today's edition from the Washington, D.C., where the World Bank IMF spring meetings are currently underway. Now, Ghana's delegation is getting ready to make a final push for debt cancellation and securing a final $3 billion IMF deal with the IMF. Now, a deal which is expected to set the ailing Ghanaian economy back on a sound footing. Now, the team is currently locked up in a meeting with the Paris Club creditors over the establishment of a partial creditor committee to negotiate the country's debt restructuring program. Now, speaking ahead of the IMF and the World Bank spring meetings in Washington, Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said the fund and wealthier countries needed to make it easier for vulnerable ones to restructure their debt to help minimize the effect of debt crisis.
We do have a significant inflation problem. That means central banks have to continue to keep interest rates higher to combat it, and that is on the way of restoring the prospects for robust growth. We have seen that this rapid transition from low interest rates, abundant liquidity to high interest rates and much less available liquidity has exposed vulnerabilities in the financial sector. That made the task of policymakers even harder. So in that context, what we are projecting for this year is, despite the remarkable resilience of consumer spending in the United States, in Europe, despite the uplift from China's reopening, global growth would remain below 3%, as we projected it earlier this year. And what is more concerning, it would remain around 3% for the next 5 years. That does not give us high hope for meeting the aspirations of people, especially poor people around the world, and most importantly, poor people in poor countries.
But beyond the plea for debt cancellation, there is more worry for low-income countries such as Ghana. Here is the World Bank President David Malpass.
Instead of having convergence, meaning people with lower incomes growing faster than people with higher incomes, so convergence toward a higher level, that's not happening right now. It's actually a divergence, and that's gravely concerning. That means inequality, that means fragility for countries, and we see more countries falling into fragility.
Now listen to the current economic outlook as presented by the World Bank and the IMF at a joint meeting a while ago.
The global economy remains on track for a gradual recovery from the pandemic and Russia's war on Ukraine. China's reopened economy is rebounding strongly. Supply chain disruptions are unwinding, while the dislocations to energy and food markets caused by the war are receding. The massive and synchronized tightening of monetary policy by most central banks is starting to bring inflation back towards its targets. At the same time, serious financial stability-related downside risks have emerged. In our latest forecast, global growth will bottom out at 2.8% this year, before rising modestly to 3% next year, almost unchanged from our January projections. Global inflation will ease, although more slowly than initially anticipated, from 8.7% last year to 7% this year and 4.9% next year. This year's slowdown is concentrated in advanced economies, where growth is expected to fall to 1.3% this year, before increasing modestly next year. By contrast, emerging market and developing economies are already pushing ahead in many cases, with year-end growth accelerating to 4.5% this year from 2.8% last year. The recent banking instability reminds us, however, that the situation remains fragile. Once again, downside risks dominate. First, inflation is much stickier than anticipated, even a few months ago. While global inflation has declined, this reflects mostly the sharp reversal in energy and food prices. But core inflation, excluding energy and food prices, has still not peaked in many countries. It is expected to decline to 6.2% this year, still well above target. Activity too shows signs of resilience. At this point in the tightening cycle, we would expect to see more signs of output and employment softening. Instead, both output and inflation estimates have been revised upwards for the last 2 quarters, suggesting stronger than expected global demand.
Now, we understand that currently government delegation is locked up in a meeting with the Paris Club towards a possible creditor committee being formed up to look into the possible debt restructuring with Ghana. Let's go onto Zoom now and get details of this meeting. Joint Business's assistant editor, George Weafe, is in Washington, D.C., and he joins us via Zoom now with details from this meeting. George, how has the meeting been going? Has it ended now? What has been the details from this meeting?
Well, it's early days yet to be getting you those fine details in terms of how the meeting has gone, whether it has ended or not. And this is it's a virtual engagement, so it's not the direct face-to-face engagement that we thought that you could all go there, but it's been done virtually since these persons are connecting from different zones and different countries to try and reach some level of agreement. Initially, there were reports that this Paris club of creditors were going to give a no objection or signal positively that they're going to participate in Ghana's financing program. What we can report being here and engaging those who are part of this meeting as well is that we understand that rather the Paris club, it is going to announce that a formation of a creditor committee rather, and that creditor committee is a partial creditor committee that will begin engagement with government on the way forward as in what can be done or what should be done to Ghana's over $5.5 billion and the way forward. So that's what we've picked up. We still can't independently establish whether that meeting has ended or not.
Interesting. What would be the use of that particular committee from what you gather, George?
I mean, it's the first critical step when it comes to clearing or cancellation of any debt for a country or company. Without this creditor committee, there can't be any progress made in terms of whether the Paris Club will indeed go ahead and cancel Ghana's debt to actually push for a restructuring of Ghana's debt. So this is very, very critical because then it gives us some indication that some progress is being made. Don't forget that what the IMF is looking for is just a commitment that the Paris Club is committed to participating in Ghana's financing program. And that is what they can take to the IMF board. So if after this meeting it is clear that the Paris Club is committed to participating in Ghana's financing program, that indeed will be very, very critical going forward. One thing that many will be looking out for would be what would be the Paris Club's position when it comes to China participating in this whole debt restructuring program. You remember the initial report was that, well, China is going to participate. Now it is clear that they are not going to participate in this Paris Club in terms of that common framework when it comes to Ghana's debt. What they want is a separate, more of a bilateral engagement with Ghana when it comes to dealing with Ghana's debt situation. And that is what we're picking. But it is very critical because then it makes us understand that Ghana is making some progress when it comes to the debt situation, restructuring it, cancellation of it. This over $5.5 billion owed to the Paris Club of creditors.
We understand China has also been around in this particular meetings. What has been the development with regards to our engagement with China and China's presence at this particular meeting, gearing towards our getting them to agree to come to the table to then help us get this IMF deal?
Well, initially we got some understanding that they will be invited to this meeting, but again, Breeze, I cannot independently confirm whether they did participate. But one critical thing at the press conference of the G24 countries when it comes to the intergovernmental organization made up of a lot of the emerging countries in Africa, the leader or the chairman of that committee, that is the finance minister of Ivory Coast, it was clear that some of the African countries had a problem with China's decision not to join the Paris Club when it comes to renegotiating the debts of some of these countries, and rather we want to do the bilateral engagement. And it's clear that some countries are not comfortable with this whole stance by China when it comes to other situations. But what we can also report is that China, in principle, is for or is committed to helping restructure Ghana's debt. What form will it take? Either lengthening the payment period or cancellation? It is still early days here to report on that one.
All right, George, I'm grateful to you. So George Rafe is in Washington, D.C., where the IMF and World Bank are having the spring meetings. Now, so we've been talking about Ghana's debt. Let's break it down for you as this particular meeting is underway in Washington, D.C. Isaac Kofi is a research data analyst here at Joy News, and he joins us live. So, Kofi, help us understand, break down Ghana's debt as we do know. What are we discussing in Washington, D.C.?
So just like we know, the total debt stock is around 52 or 53 billion dollars, and we have the domestic and then external components. We've been able to do a debt restructuring for the domestic. Now it is the time to do a restructuring for external, because it's one of the conditions we have to meet before we get the $3 billion bailout package from the IMF. And just like this story has been focusing on, there have been intense calls for China's participation in the external debt restructuring. We've heard from the IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, who is saying that China must fast-track this whole debt restructuring for countries like Ghana, for Zambia, and then Ethiopia. We've also had calls from the U.S. also calling on China to fast-track the debt restructuring for these developing countries. So it looks as if China is like the most significant missing piece in this whole debt puzzle or restructuring puzzle. And now I want to use graphics to show you how important China is and why all other countries are calling on China. So if you look at this trajectory or inclined plane that we have on the touch screen, this is Ghana with an external debt stock of about $29 billion, trying to get a bailout package from the IMF worth $3 billion US. But we have all of these, obstacles to actually clear. The biggest of them is the Eurobond creditors, about $13 billion, multilateral, $8 billion, other creditors, $3 billion. We have the Paris Club, about $1.9 billion, and China itself, $1.7 billion. If you look at these obstacles or these creditors that we have our debts with, or they have our debts with us, China is the only single country to have a debt burden of about $2 billion. There's no other country. Even if you combine all the 22 Paris clubs, their debt stock is around $1.9 billion. This is why China is the most important missing piece in this whole debt restructuring exercise. And all of these obstacles or creditors are saying, if China doesn't lead the way, they will also not lead the way. So the success of our international or external debt restructuring is contingent on China's participation or full participation in this whole debt restructuring that we are talking about. If China is ready to come to the negotiation table, all of these big guys will also be ready to play ball with us. So that's the picture for you. We are trying to get a $3 billion bailout package, and China is the missing piece or the most important component of this whole debt puzzle that we're talking about.
Interesting. So that's the breakdown there for you to understand who and who Ghana owes. Now, a professor of finance at the University of Ghana, Professor Bokping, has been speaking on this. He says this week will prove very critical to Ghana's chances of securing the $3 billion arrangement with the IMF. But he fears the current state of affairs of Ghana will allow some of the country's creditors to meddle in the affairs of a sovereign country like Ghana. He spoke to my colleague Evans Mensah on Newsnight on Joy FM.
Yeah, so it has been suggested, and I agree largely, that this week will prove to be very critical for Ghana in terms of our resolve to get IMF-supported program. And the reason this week is critical is simply because of the IMF World Bank joint spring meeting, because there you are going to have all the partners, the country representatives, the finance ministers and the central bank governors would all converge during the spring meeting. And therefore, instead of traveling to individual member countries to go and be begging or calling others to beg on your behalf, now everybody is at one place. And thankfully, some kind of a meeting has been arranged. But what is a bit concerning for me is that it has taken us more than 2 months to realize that China wasn't going to play along with Paris Club creditors. And the reason it's coming to us as a surprise is that we should have known this long ago. And I am sure the West knew this long ago. And Ghana should have known this long ago, that in principle, the way China conducts its activities in Africa and other countries is quite different. And also the global geopolitics, the geo-economic fragmentation, and all of that is going to play out in how we are able to get China to play along. Don't forget that China wants to be recognized as a big player and wants to be dealt on its own terms. Remember that given that whoever gives you money controls and directs how your affairs are managed. And I agree largely with George when you were saying that even for the Paris Club creditors, if they are going to give us debt relief,
You're still watching Joy News Prime here. Now, the two other stories, and the National Democratic Congress has petitioned the police to arrest and prosecute Minister for Food and Agriculture, Brian Achampon, over his comment that people have described as having the potential to put this country into chaos. Now, according to the NDC, the recent comment by Brian Achampon at Impriaso in the Eastern Region after a health walk that the MPP will never hand over power to the NDC on any platform, and will also show them that they had the men were in bad taste and has the potential of escalating political chaos in the country. Now, they are therefore demanding actions against the minister. Director of Legal Affairs of the NDC, Abraham Amaleba, addressed the media after presenting a petition to the CID boss, DCOP Faustina Jewa Kodia Ando Kofi.
So today, we were at the CID quarters. Sent to the CID boss a petition calling on the CID boss to investigate and prosecute for Agric, Brian Achampon, for the unsavory comments that he made during the Easter break. You are aware that he's on viral video to have said that they, the MPP, will not hand over power to the NDC, come what may. Lawyers, we are of the view that this comments on that day border on one, national security, and two, this administration must be interested in this matter because our stakeholders.
Now, in an interesting twist to this development, the national organizer of the NPP, Henry Nana Boakye, says they have also concluded a petition to be presented to the IGP for the arrest of former President John Dramani Mahama and the chairman of the opposition NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, over comments that they have made in the past that have the tendency to disrupt the peaceful coexistence of the country. Henry Nana Boakye was speaking on Top Story on Joy FM.
The MPP, we have also just finalized a petition which we intend to forward to the police CID for the arrest, investigation, and prosecution of the former president, John Dramani Mahama, for comments he made with, which undermines the stability and peace, saying that the NDC was born out of a revolution. NDC is a violent party. When it comes to unleashing violence, they are number one. They are unmatched. The 2024 election is going to be boot for boot. And then also do or die affair. The national chairman of the NDC, Mr. Asiedu Nketia, is also in our petition. And then we are also calling for his arrest, investigation, and prosecution. What we have also said is that recently when he won and when he was addressing his party faithfuls, what he said was that they are going to do anything possible to win the elections, even if they have to sacrifice lives. He also said that. So we have also finalized the petition, and then we are just proceeding to the CID any time from now, and we are calling for the arrest of these two persons, former President Mahama and then Mr. Johnson Asiedu Nketia. We are asking the police to also investigate them, also prosecute them for some of these comments they made.
Director of the NDC's Legal Directorate, Abraham Amaliba, says the NDC won't tolerate these actions by the governing NPP.
Much ado about nothing. You rightly indicated. Why would you wait for the NDC to forward a petition for the arrest of Brian Champon? Then you will now wake up from your slumber and say similar comments have been made and you are asking the police to arrest. I have said earlier on that the police have drawn a line. The line they drew was when the youth organizer was arrested. And the police made it clear, moving forward, such comments will not be tolerated. But you see, Brian Champon has a history. I heard my senior attached here make the point that, it was just a mere political talk. No. If it were anybody in the MPP, probably we could say yes. But Brian has been fingered by the Short Commission for being the one behind the deployment of the hoodlums who maimed people at Ayawaso West Wogan. Those same boys, when they were engaged in those acts, said 2020, a similar thing would happen. Even a similar thing happened in the Hichima South. So the person we are talking about has a history, he has a penchant of violence, and that is the reason why there's so much focus and attention on him.
Now let's stay with politics, because former President John Dramani Mahama has launched an attack on his fellow contenders who are contending him for the NDC's flagbearership position and questioning their capability to lead the NDC. Now, according to him, the only reason why he's putting himself up for re-election is because neither Dr. Kwabena Dufo nor Kojo Bonsu can lead the NDC to snatch power from the governing NPP. Addressing delegates in the Yellow Krobo constituency in the Eastern region, John Mahama also said he's the only candidate that gives the NPP sleepless nights. Now, let's go onto the phone lines now and speak to our Eastern regional correspondent, Edwin Kofi Sian, who has been following the president on that particular trip. We'll bring him so we can have, the details of this particular tour. But let's go for some reactions. We're joined on via Zoom by the campaign spokesperson of Dr. Kwabena Dufo, one of the contenders in the NDC presidential race, Antonio Edem Asinyo. Grateful that you could join us here. Now, first, what is your reaction to John Mahama saying that your candidate, even if he is elected, doesn't have the capacity to lead the NDC to snatch power from the NPP?
Thank you very much, and a very good evening to your viewers. The former president's claim cannot be taken serious, and why do I say so? Permit me some time to walk you through the former president's electoral history with the NPP. It's important to note that the former president is the luckiest politician the country has ever experienced. He's been a member of parliament, he's been a deputy minister, a minister, vice president, and president. He's worked hard for the party and the country and has benefited from the perks of his work, including taking his ex-gratia. That notwithstanding, the former president went into the 2012 election unopposed. He became the leader of the party without a contest. His first electoral victory ended up in the Supreme Court, even though we won it. As head of state in 2016, he contested with the MPP, and even with the power vested in him as the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, he lost embarrassingly the biggest defeat in Ghana's history ever, close to 1 million votes. Note, he was the head of state. He was a sitting president. The MPP defeated him, the biggest defeat ever. That election, as president, again, he was unable to even collate his own results as presidential candidate for the NDC. Let's look at 2020. The NDC took a chance on the former president, and he went to contest the same MPP that he says are afraid of him. He lost close to 500,000 votes. It's important to note, again, in the history of the Fourth Republic, the total sum of the presidential election is always more than that of the parliamentary. But in 2020, the NDC's parliamentarians got more votes than the former president. In fact, let me state, 118 constituencies got parliamentary candidates got more votes than the flag bearer, which is the former president. Let me use as an example. The NDC in 2016 had 4 parliamentary candidates or MPs. In 2020, we had 13. Yet the presidential candidate lost all and only won 4 constituencies in the central region, even when he had his running mate from the central region. Clearly, the former president, respectfully, is a spent force, and he sought to equate the Economic Intelligence Unit report or their forecast of the 2024 election on the MPP. That's not it. The Economic Intelligence Unit is a London-based research group, and they've always gotten their forecast of our election correctly. What they are forecasting for the 2024 election is for the NDC to have a new face, and that will improve our chances should we present a new face like Dr. Kwabena Duffuor, who is experienced, capable, and can be trusted to lead us. That change or that new face can only revitalize the prospects of the NDC in the 2024 election. That is the fact. That's not an MPP claim. That is the Economic Intelligence Unit's claim. And it's important that we put these records straight. The former president.
So your point is that even if he's elected to lead the NDC, there's no possibility of him winning power for the party.
I am not saying that. The former president sought to say that MPP people are moving around saying that the NDC should bring a new face because they are scared of him. I've given you the former president's electoral history with the MPP, which suggests that the MPP sees him as the easiest candidate to beat at the polls. And I'm also suggesting to you that the Economic Intelligence Unit's report, which suggests that the NDC has a chance of winning the 2024 election
with a new face.
That will revitalize the base of the party. And indeed, the former president with experience and that of the new candidate will be the MPP easily. So it would have been better for the former president to be the elder of the party, which we currently don't have because we do not have a former president or vice president alive. He's the only one we have alive.
Okay.
The MPP have former
All right,
president
Antonio,
who advises them.
I'm grateful for joining us with those responses. Antonio is a spokesperson for the Dr. Kwabena Duffuor campaign team. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more news. Stay with us. Yeah. Welcome back from the break. Now, if you're a health worker in Ghana and thinking of seeking greener pastures in the UK, you may need to have a rethink because the UK government says the UK social and health employers must not consider health workers from Ghana when they are employing health and social workers. Now, the announcement was made by the UK government in its revised code of practice for international recruitment of health and social care personnel in England. Now, the code states that some developing countries such as Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria are among a list of 54 countries that should not be actively targeted for recruitment by health and social care employers in the country. So that is the news coming in from the UK. We're joined on the phone, on the lines by the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, David Tinkran. Grateful, sir, for joining us here. Now, in December 2022, in an interview you granted, you said that averagely between 400 to 500 nurse health workers leave Ghana. They settle for the UK, Ireland, Wales, Canada, and the US of A. Now, you said, quote, if we don't put in place measures to keep them in Ghana, we can lose all of them, and that's a problem for us, end quote. Now, how is the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association receiving this news from the UK that don't engage health professionals from Ghana?
All right. Good evening to you and your viewers. I think this directive is much ado about nothing. The UK government has just penned down what is currently going on. It does not exclude individuals who decide to apply to a health facility in UK. What they are seeking to emphasize is, for instance, mass recruitment by recruiting agencies. And the practice that we have is that individuals are applying to various health facilities in the United Kingdom and getting employment. And mind you, there are several destinations. Okay, UK is just one of them. Nurses and midwives, and that matter, healthcare workers are traveling to several destinations in the world, not only UK.
No, but is it not the case that they were able to migrate there prior to the release of this particular, note that don't employ people from Ghana? And that from today, that may be the case that they won't allow people, the health workers from Ghana entering UK to work.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that the system of recruitment is different, okay? They have various means of recruiting health workers in UK. You, as an individual, can apply to a health institution and you'll be taken on board. And it's ongoing and it will continue because migration is a right. There is no way they can stop anybody from coming to United Kingdom to come and work, so long as you have the requisite qualification.
So what do you expect the UK government to do then, to put an end to this, where health workers migrate from Ghana to work in the UK?
What I'm saying is it's just politics. They can never stop it. Look, by close of 2020, UK had lost about 40,000 healthcare workers. How are they going to replace that? So the recruitment process will go on. The WHO has a guideline on ethical recruitment, and that is what they are seeking to emphasize. But it does not preclude them from continuing to employ our people. For instance, the Ministry of Health has an ongoing conversation to sign a bilateral agreement with the UK government to export nurses to United Kingdom. That, I'm told, has not been put on hold. But don't let anybody delude himself into thinking that if UK is stopping nurses and midwives from coming to their country, then it means that the attrition has stalled. No. There are various destinations. Austria has opened up. Germany has opened up. And what government must do is to be very intentional about putting in measures that will retain our people. We don't need to train and lose them. Okay. The good people of this country also deserve quality healthcare, and we need to retain our people.
David Timken, I'm grateful to you for joining us here on Joy Newsroom. He is the secretary to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Now, still on health, let's do some drone stories now. And health workers in Jantokrom, a remote farming community in the Wasa Amenfi West municipality of the Western region, are impressed with the services of medical drone delivery services. Now, according to them, the introduction of this service has positively impacted the lives of residents. Now, managers of the CHIPS compound say the drone service have made it very easier for them to have access to medications, especially anti-snake drugs, which formerly would have taken several days or weeks to get to their community.
This is Jantokrom, a farming community, 3 hours drive from Asankragwa, the municipal capital of the Amenfi West municipality of the Western region. This remote village is home to a tight-knit community of people who farm for a living. Their community is unfortunately connected by a terrible road network. The community has a CHIPS compound, which serves as the main source of healthcare for the people here and the many others surrounding this community. However, the CHIPS compound is plagued by several challenges. Ben Mieza is in charge of the Jantokrom CHIPS compound.
Very challenging, but we are managing. Yes, very challenging. There is no light, and the staff do not have quarters for accommodation. So we are just managing, but it's challenging. Where we stay, we do not have permanent accommodation, so we use some of the facility as staff accommodation. And during that, we can't have space for both male and female when we are to detain people. For instance, somebody coming to labor and you need a space, a male too is occupying that same ward. It's either you discharge the male to go home or to refer and attend to the delivery, or you let the delivery go ahead. It might be that the person might deliver on the way, and it's very bad. So we are just seeking that if it will be possible to get anybody to come and help us to have accommodation for staff, it will be very good for us.
Lack of electricity affects them badly because they are unable to store vaccines and other critical medicines.
We are supposed to vaccinate children every month. We have to move to the nearest community, that's Odankotons for vaccine. Come and use them. After that, we have to send it back, which also affects us. If in transport, there can be anything. If there is vaccine here, we'll use it and keep it. but because you don't have a vaccine fridge and light, you have to go and put the vaccine in the light. You can get accident on the way, and that is a fact. If we're having our own light, we're getting a fridge and we're putting our vaccines here. Even in some of the things that we use, especially oxytocin, they are supposed to be in a cold pack. We don't have light here, so there's no fridge for you to keep the oxy, and it's also a problem. So if you have light, so many things can be done, and health delivery will be very smooth for all of us.
The CHIPS compound, due to the distant nature of the community, had been battling with the difficulty in transporting their medical supplies, such as vaccines, to the facility. But today, with the drone services provided by Zipline, medical supplies, including vaccines, are supplied directly to the CHIPS compound, bypassing the poor road infrastructure that otherwise made it difficult to transport medical supplies.
As for that one, by God's grace, we have been enlisted on it. So our vaccines that we talk about, is the drone that brings to us some drugs. If we get shortage of drugs, we request and they bring it. So as for that one, incidentally and by God's grace and our municipal director, the health director and other people, by their help, we've been able to get that thing. So that for that one, we thank them for that. But we are just seeking that they help us with the light, because as for that one, it is affecting us.
The CHIPS compound is faced with a lot of challenges, from inadequate rooms to cater for patients to not well structured maternity delivery bed. But there's a spark of hope here. It's because the drone services by Zipline has been serving this community adequately.
Now, let's do some more stories here. Now, the Ghana Meteorological Agency, GMET, is set to deploy 250 new recruits across the country. 120 of the new recruits, according to GMET, are trainees from the Nation Builders Corps who have been retained and employed as permanent staff of the agency. The Meteo says these deployments will help improve upon its work. There's more in the following report.
For the past 4 weeks, the Ghana Meteorological Agency has been on a nationwide trek, educating Ghanaians on the effect of climate activities on the weather, as well as the relevance of weather conditions in their daily planning. Climaxing the activities at a closing ceremony in Accra, Acting Director General of the agency, Eric Isuman, disclosed that GMET has recruited 250 new employees for deployment.
Prior to the end of NAPCO program in September 2021, after the 3-year training period, GMET made a special appeal to our minister to grant us a special dispensation to enable us retain the NAPCO personnel, because the agency did not have funds to pay these personnel on contract basis after the program. We requested financial clearance to recruit the personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, our minister responded positively to our plea and made a necessary intervention for us to receive the clearance from the Ministry of Finance in 2022 to recruit additional personnel, not only the retained NAPCO personnel. The current total staff strength of the agency now stand at 556.
Head of Central Analysis and Forecasting at the Ghana Meteorological Agency, Felicity Ahiano, explains the work of these recruits.
We have that some are in charge of administrative procedures, some are in charge of the daily observation, that's the hourly observation, and then we have some that will now be analyzing the data. So we have the assistant meteorologists, we are grooming them, so we'll send them to the regions, so they become the regional meteorologists or forecasters. So they now zoom the forecast to the Ashanti region, to the Eastern region, Volta region, Greater Accra, Western Central, Bronx, Savannah, Upper East, Upper West, Northern, Northeast. You see, so they also zone in there so that the forecasts become more accurate.
Delivering the keynote address, the Minister for Communications and Digitization, Esla Owusu-Ekufo, promised more government funding for the agency.
The Ministry of Communications and Digitization also facilitated payments for operational vehicles procured by the agency, calibration equipment, and the message switching system. I really hope that you would also revamp your broadcasting system as well from your head office. Several other automatic weather stations have been installed with funds from government's e-transform project to expand your network of stations across the country since 2018. We're all witnesses to the improved accuracy of forecast and efficiency in GMET's service delivery. GMET is also a beneficiary institution to receive support under the World Bank funded Ghana Digital Acceleration Project, which is currently awaiting parliamentary approval.
The minister has also appealed to all new recruits to accept posting to any part of the country and work diligently to revamp the Meteorological Agency. James Kwesi-Aveji's report, read to you.
You're also watching Joy News Prime. We'll take a break. Up next is Showbiz.
Investment Limited.
Welcome back from the break. Time for us to bring you Showbiz, and who else knows how to do it best than
look
Becky
at me all on TV. Well, I'm about
Becky,
to tell you.
how are you?
I'm fantastic.
How was your weekend?
The weekend was very long.
Yeah, yours was really, really long.
It was long. There wasn't much to do. I had a very good night's sleep. But on Saturday, I was at the conference center where Basket Mouth had his Unprovoked Easter comedy show.
Okay.
Lexi the comic was there. Sarkodia was there.
Obian
Ponsa was there. And
Bucci.
And it was generally a fantastic show, and I came out with this report.
Woman and me came outside that night. As I wake up, I said, Jack, what are you doing?
You know what they say, that there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. And so patrons of the Easter comedy show headlined by legendary comedian Basket Mouth were treated to the best of rip-cracking jokes.
She went to bring my car battery.
I've been to a couple. I've never witnessed the legend. I've been a fan for a very long time. Thought I was going to be focusing more of the performance because it's different when you're watching on TV, but it literally felt like that, even better, you know. And I'm impressed. I've been laughing throughout the whole set. It was great. I think it's always a blessing that people like him, a legend, can still, you know, at least we work to a point where your name could be dropped in a big set like that. So it's an honor.
It's Easter, so like. The few Ghanaians who decided not to go to Kwao came around for us to make them laugh. And so it was my duty as a comedian to crack these people up. And I really enjoyed them, especially because it was a mixed crowd. There's a Ghanaian crowd, there's Nigerians seated amongst each other. So it's lovely entertaining people of different cultures like that. You can pick on different cultures, and then, yeah. So I really enjoyed this performance.
Even before I started comedy, he's one of the few people that I admired his craft. I never thought that moments like this will come where I'll be on the same stage with him. It's a beautiful experience that I can't find words to express it. I would say it's a dream come true. When the call came through that he needed me to be on as an MC, I said, why not? This is what we all been fighting for, a huge platform like this. So yeah.
Always Ghana has been positive energy, especially when it comes to comedy. They have that, you know, very welcoming when it comes to comedy, so it was really exciting this time around. I loved it. Energy all those on point, so yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. It was exciting, and this is my first time going on stage as a first act in a long while. So yeah, I was a bit, as a normal performer, it comes with all the, anxiety, the nervousness, etc. But yeah, it was awesome. It was great. I loved it, and I did my best.
Then I saw other talents, including Obian Ponsa.
They were screening our military, our policemen. Dampari was like,
Foster Romanos, Lexi the Commie, and Bucci all take turns to ensure that laughter was dominant.
I got to meet the other Nigerians. Okay, you some allow him now, madam, allow him. What if it's a matter of life and death?
Basket Mouth is the brain behind the Unprovoked tour, Ghana.
Love it. I love it. Accra, Ghana. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing, man. You guys make me feel good. Yeah, love it.
What's different about this one? I know that you have another show back home in Nigeria, and you spoken about all the tours that but this particular show in Ghana, has it been difficult for you putting it together?
No. It's not, I have an amazing team, so I don't feel the pressure. My business is just to promote the show as much as I can, as hard as I can, and make people know about it. But the team working behind the scene, they're very amazing, flawless when it comes to execution. And yeah, they don't make it easy. My own performance, it's a gift. I just do it.
Comedy in Ghana is on the rise. Do watch out for an event near you. Rebecca Darkon for Joy News.
We'll be bringing you more of that in subsequent bulletins.
The mother. And on that note, we wrap up.
Should I do the wrapping up? The news bulletin,
Nice.
and we'll be back tomorrow for even more thrilling experience of Joy News Prime. Beverly Broom is up next. Prime Business. Thank you so much, Grace, for allowing me.